This sawmill was built by a company called the Andrew Corley Sawmill, and it was built in around the turn of the century, 1900. This sawmill's been at Charlton Park approximately 20 years.
The Charlton Park Gas and Steam Club, we usually run at least one demonstration for Charlton Park Day in May, and then we have a 3-day gas and steam show in July. The last several years we've had a fall harvest festival show in September. The club is responsible for keeping the sawmill and other pieces of equipment at the park running.
This saw, if you had a crew, and that was what you did, probably 5,000 board foot a day, and depends on the log size, but that an average log will probably have 150, 200 foot. I'd say with the way we do it, we've sawed 2,500 foot in a day here on the mill during the shows. So, that's quite a bit. If you backed up before the late 1800s, people cut lumber by hand. They had different methods, but they had 2 men on a saw ripping boards, and you would make maybe 1 board in an hour. Well, they came up with some other ways of doing it. Water power with saws, that was still pretty slow. And then they ended up with steam engines. The steam engines powered them they're still a good power source. The steam engines powered this circle saw, and around 1900, the saws were changed, the design was changed totally. They ran a lot of the saws, they ran 2 shifts or ran them day and night. In the big timber country, they didn't shut them down. They just ran them for all the time, nights and days and whatever, because it was so important to keep those saws running. They were cutting all those redwoods and all the big cedars and pines, and it took a lot of time to saw all those up. We were building the cities, all over the United States and the world, and a lot of it came from the West.
Back when these sawmills were ran all the time, you couldn't go to Lowe's or Home Depot or any place like that and buy lumber. You had to have access to someone that had a sawmill like this in order to get your lumber to build your barn and your house and whatnot.
To have a live deck that the logs are on that feeds them up there, so it brings them up to the mill, and then there's a turner that loads them on the carriage and also turns the logs, and then the carriage takes them through the saw blade, and then it's got machinery works on it that various increments inch the log over so you get various width of boards.
To make lumber, start out, you cut a tree down, get the log to the sawmill, put it on the carriage, and find the side that you want to cut. That's kind of the sawyer's decision. It's almost an art to pick up a log and see what you have to do with it. Make a cut there, and generally you'll make a couple of boards or whatever. Then rotate the log around maybe to the other side, or depends on if you're sawing grade lumber or if you're making 2x4s or 2x6s. There's 2 different processes, but today we made 2x6s, most of them, and you take if it's a 2x6, take a 2-inch board or a 2-inch cut, then you take that 2-inch board and cut it down to the width you want. In our case, we were making 2x6s, so they were 6 inches wide by 2 inches thick, and continue cutting. And after that's done, they have an edge. We have an edger down on the end of the saw. That is for cutting the bark or the rough edge off the boards. If I don't cut them on the big mill, then they have to go across that. The handheld tool that I use is a cant hook.
And you take a lot of people and a lot of manpower to make a lot of sawdust and lumber.